Well, hello everybody. Welcome to a Mexican Crossing Lines. We're going to do another episode of Psyop BS. This will be the 4th episode. So please share this out. We are streaming on YouTube at Duke1517. We're on Facebook at 88.1 Fargo Moorhead. And we're on Twitch at a Mexican Crossing Lines.
For those of you who have just tuned in to this radio show and are wondering what we're talking about, American Psyop is a podcast that has taken it upon itself to publish the lunatic ravings of Wes Clark Jr. and his slanderous and lying misrepresentations of history. And we are here to correct the record. Unfortunately, we too were slandered and misrepresented and had our copyright material stolen by Jack Bryan and Brent Mysalis of the Midas Touch. And so we're going to have to correct the record here on a Mexican Crossing Lines with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp
and Duke Gomez-Schempp.
Here on 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. So, if you hadn't known what the Psyop BS stood for in the show title, it is BS is short for bull caca. And Psyop is, part of the show's original name. A Psyop is a psychological operation.
Oh, yeah.
And in the American Psyop podcast series, which was conducted by a journalist. I found her IMDb. She's listed as an actress first, not as a journalist, but I digress. Girlfriend to the girlfriend of possibly the fiance of Jack Bryan, Emily Bix. Emily Bix, everyone, actress and also pseudo-journalist, so she claims.
Yeah.
But really, she is Jack Bryan's boo, and she does Jack Bryan's bidding. Anyway, the show is also produced by Stacey Scher, Jack Bryan, Marley Clements, and executive produced by Grant DeSimone and Brent Mysalis. Despite the fact that they claimed that they did due diligence, that they vetted the stories, that they checked with their lawyers for 6 months, as I have shown you in the past 3 episodes, there's a lot that they did not do.
That's right. They didn't even call, and they took our material right off of our shows, and they spliced up the audio, and they presented it, and they never even would say Cindy's name. They said Cindy from North Dakota.
Oh no, they said Gomez.
Oh, they put in the Gomez. Well, I must have missed that with all the few times they actually gave you credit or us credit or where this material came from.
But they did not say your name, and they did not say my last name.
I don't exist. I'm on every show. All the stuff behind me isn't really mine. But, I run the control room, and I do all the switching and all other aspects of the show. And I'm a co-host. But I guess
and you
I'm
are
invisible.
Also the guy that runs all of the doodads and doohickeys and manages the sound and produces the shows. I find it insulting, but I think there's a point to it. If they never say a Mexican Crossing Lines or where to find the material, kpppfm.com,
Yep.
If they never say Cindy Gomez-Schempp, then it makes it impossible for most people to search and find our content.
That's right. They said Cindy Gomez.
That's it.
They left out the Schempp because that's my part, remember?
Right, and they also left out a Mexican Crossing Lines. And the most important thing that they left out was how to get a hold of us, how to find the content, and how to look at the history of the thousands of hours of reporting that we have done for years at this radio station where you can go on kpppfm.com and look at our previous content pertaining to Standing Rock and everything that happened since then. The people that came out of Standing Rock, the coverage that we did on the Flint camp slash flop house, as I called it, after Standing Rock. All of the mercenary activists that left Standing Rock, cut their teeth at Standing Rock, and then went around the world, really, to do what they called disaster relief. But they left in their wake people that were defrauded, people that were assaulted, people that were raped. And as I am showing you, I believe that, and of course everyone can draw their own conclusion, but I believe that not saying my full name, not mentioning where you can find the content, the context, not mentioning the name of the show so that you can go back and also so that you can look at the content for yourselves and make up your mind whether or not there is sufficient material and evidence there to determine that what we have shown you, what we have brought to you, we've investigated, whether it holds any water. I believe our work speaks for itself. We painstakingly put together hours-long shows. And if you've been paying attention to our YouTube channel, our Facebook Lives, or if you've been listening in the metro area, you probably heard that we've been playing some old shows.
That's right.
So that we give you some of the context and the background that the American Psyop people didn't bother to do.
Yeah, and one thing I did recently is I did a updated resource sheet on all of our shows from 2016 up till when Standing Rock closed and beyond, and you can go to kpppfm.com. There's a little tab that says Updates on Standing Rock, and you can click on that and see the shows in sequence. And when we first started, and we just did strictly audio, it was when Facebook was just starting to do live streaming, and we hadn't figured that out yet, but we basically did radio work covering Standing Rock, and you can go through all of our interviews. And we did a few video shoots with a little held hand camera, some iPhone type camera, and put a bunch of those up on some shorts with people that were at the encampment. But all that information is at kpppfm.com. Also, if you want to email either of us, you can email Cindy at kpppfm.com or me, Duke, at kpppfm.com. And if you want to give us a call and leave a message, like you would if you were researching our shows and wanted more information, you would call 701-566-0917. Again, that number is 701-566-0917. We get notified as soon as someone calls, leaves a message, we can get back to you.
So, last time where I left off is we were covering who Wes Clark Jr., the son of retired General and former head of NATO Wesley Clark Sr., son, was at Standing Rock in December with the Veterans Stand for Standing Rock in 2016. And who exactly he was working with, what PR team he had around him, and some of the other actors, literal actors, that were at the camp, like Francis Fisher, that was hanging out with Russian television correspondent Samira Khan. And, of course, we also showed you that there were some unsavory types of people whose image was being whitewashed, very much in the same vein as the PR company of Trevor Fitzgibbons, along with Ann Zolkowski and the other people that they worked with, were used to doing for their clients, such as Chelsea Manning, such as Julian Assange, Fitzgibbons himself, and Jordan Chariton. I've covered in each of my shows some of the past shows in which we've talked about these PR people that cover for predators and their backgrounds as predators, whether that be pedophilia, whether that be sexual assault of women, whether that be racism, anti-Semitism, what have you. And we ended, I believe, with one of the other people, incidentally, that Wes was making the rounds and trying to wash the background history of, John Bolenbaugh. And John Bolenbaugh was promoting his activism in being a whistleblower for oil companies, because he used to work for an oil company. And now there's a picture of all of them together at the camp that you can look at. And they are wearing the water protector T-shirts with John Bolenbaugh's name at the bottom. Because John Bolenbaugh was trying to make a new name for himself. And, of course, Wes was there to help prop him up. There was a bunch of people doing interviews of specific characters. I'm using my air quotes again. A lot of these characters seemed to be the clients or the pet projects of these PR people that were out at Standing Rock, like Maggie Day and Seven McDonald and Winnie Wong, Desiree Kane, etc., etc. But this is from John Bolenbaugh's a website for John Bolenbaugh, in which he tries to explain away his history as a pedophile, his conviction as a pedophile, and how he is a new and changed man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, check it out. Here is from the website. I just wanted to pull this particular little piece of it. It's a long website, johnbolenbaugh.com, I believe it's called. But anyway, just this one part of it is super hilarious to me. Now, remember, this was a website put up in favor of John. This is supposed to convince you he's a good guy.
I see.
So it says that John finished his parole in 2010, and he has had 0 issues. 0 issues means he has not been arrested again, because he did marry a girl that looks like she's 12 years old. And I guess that doesn't count as an issue. Maybe he made sure that this one was above the age of 18 before he married her. That would be probably how he can say that with a straight face. Then, at number 9 on this list of reasons why John Bolenbaugh is a normal and productive citizen in the community that you don't have to worry about no more, it says John Bolenbaugh has not had any accusations or charges since his 2002 conviction, and only has speeding tickets from years ago. So, again, no new convictions. And then, this person who is defending John, he must make a disclaimer here before he lists all of the pedos that have gotten away with it before, and nobody seems to care about. But for some reason, we're all like digging down on poor John Bolenbaugh.
Yeah.
He starts with his disclaimer. I do not agree with states that have young legal ages for consensual sex and marriage, but here are some 2016 facts. In Alabama, South Carolina, and Utah, girls can marry at age 14. In New Hampshire, the legal age is 13. And Massachusetts and Kansas, it's only 12. I only say that to show it does legally happen. So he wants you to know that John Bolenbaugh, even though he got convicted of raping, okay, he got convicted of pedophilia because he had sex with a minor. Technically, if he had been in one of these other states, he wouldn't even be a convict.
Oh, if he was going to marry her, I guess.
No! Consensual sex or marriage.
Okay.
So if he had been in Massachusetts, for example, according to this, he wouldn't even have been convicted. So, just keep that in mind. That doesn't make me feel any better about John Bolenbaugh. What that tells me is that there are a bunch of rapists out there and people that have committed statutory rape people that have molested girls, people that have had intercourse with girls in states where it's not a crime, and therefore feel like they can walk around with the moral upper hand over pedophiles like John Bolenbaugh that just happened to find themselves in the wrong state when they decided to commit pedophilia. You know, and this is the part that gets me. It says there are many. I only say these things to show it does legally happen depending on the states and the parents' approval, but there are many famous people that dated or married underage girls. Elvis, James Doherty, the cop, Marilyn Monroe, and at 14 had married. Jerry Lee Lewis married a 13-year-old. Yeah, and it was also his cousin. Yeah. Don Johnson married Melanie Griffith when started dating her when she was 15. Paul Walker, Jasmine Gunnell at 15. Sonny Bono had Cher at 16. Justin Gaston had Miley Cyrus at 15. Joel Madden had Hilary Duff at 16. Tyga and Kylie Jenner at 16. Shawn Andrews and Mila Jovovich at 16. R. Kelly. By the way, guys, R. Kelly had just been recently added to his many years of conviction. Yeah. And then, of course, there's Aaliyah, who's dead. Doug Hutchinson, Courtney Hutchinson. Wilmer Valdemar and Lindsay Lohan. And John Derek and Bo Derek. And there's so many more. Yeah, you can add to that Weinstein and all of the women that he assaulted. And
yeah, we'll just keep on going down the list of sex crimes with people and just legitimize it and normalize them.
You know who else? Do you know who else thought it was okay to have to sexualize a young girl? And this person did it on film. Kissed a 12-year-old girl on film and said, as he sexualized her in the movie, "You're old enough to kiss," or something like that. You're old enough, because he asked her, "How old are you?" And she's like, "I'm 12." Yeah. And he says, "Well, you're old enough to kiss," or something like that. That was none other than Clint Eastwood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Look up that footage when you're bored on a Sunday. It's really gross. But that is what is being normalized here. And I want to pause for a moment because, as I said when I began today's show, I don't think that the shoddy work of Emily Bix and her boyfriend Jack and all these other people involved, including that it was like a oopsie poopsie, we didn't do our homework. I think it's very deliberate that these people kept our names and the name of the show and the name of the station and where you could find all of our evidence for the things that we have said in the past, for the things that we said about Wes Clark Jr., for the things that we said about what happened at Standing Rock, because they couldn't be bothered. But they also didn't want any of you to be able to find the evidence on your own. But what else are they doing? They're normalizing the idea that people can be brain controlled. Yeah. Whatever you believe about that, that is one of the things, one of the messages that they're trying to sell. Besides the fact that they're giving a platform to a self-described lunatic, right? That says, when questioned by Emily Bix, whether or not he could also be a psyop, that yeah, he could be. Yeah. You know, they're normalizing the idea that he is telling the truth when they themselves admit within the show that he could be perpetrating a psychological operation on Americans or continuing a psychological operation on Americans, and that they are assisting him in doing so. Does that stop them from helping Wes in his endeavor to psyop Americans, or at the very least, to lie and defraud American people? No. They went right in, 2 feet. They jumped on in. So let's take a look at what gives me this impression that they're trying to normalize this. Well, one of the things I shared with you in my last show was that one of the people featured in this production, a podcast, is Desiree Kane, and that she, to this day, and including within the context recently of what's been discussed about American PSYOP, you have Desiree Kane on a Twitter thread with Trump's nephew, a.k.a. the rapper, the right-wing rapper for Jato Blow, that is questioning who should be Trump's VP, featuring Tulsi Gabbard. And in this Twitter thread, you see Desiree Kane engaging in this conversation with far-right figures like Forgiato Blow and the people in this thread, and having an argument, really, defending Tulsi Gabbard and talking about the work that she did as a media person and that worked on running security for Tulsi Gabbard. And there's a picture within this thread that includes people that were accused of raping women and stealing money. Ed Higgins here. Of assaulting people and harassing people. Jesse Elnicki. Of committing numerous crimes, some of which he's been arrested for. Evan Duke. And, of course, Tulsi Gabbard. And you have Desiree Kane engaging with and helping to lift the algorithm for this thread on the alt-right with her Twitter handle at Mr. Social, in which she is arguing that to the people in this thread of Forgiato Blows, that these men in the picture were the handlers of her security and her press and more. And that isn't a photo of random vets from the area, because she was there. Yeah, and she was working with all these people.
Exactly.
She should know. So let me just share with you my feelings about this thread. It's clear to me that a lot of these folks are engaging with the people in Trump's campaign, and that they were always engaged in the support of Trump as they masqueraded as Bernie Sanders socialist Democrats, as they masqueraded as progressives when they're not, or as they masqueraded as Indians when they've never had a history of leaning into their Indian background. They're George DeSantoing the situation. They're Anna Paulina Luna-ing the situation. Because, these people who heretofore had never identified as black or Jewish or Latino or gay or, whatever, suddenly they are. And they're doing that. And so I don't know what I need to refer to Desiree Kane as. Maybe we should start referring to her as because she's got a lot of different names.
Oh, yeah.
Desiree Kane Man, Santos, Paulina Luna DeVolder, maybe?
Maybe.
Because that is what these astroturfers do. They go and they infiltrate different movements, campaigns, and they hijack them for their own purposes, such as they did with Occupy Wall Street, which Winnie Wong of the PR firm, working with the PR firm of Trevor Fitzgibbon and Ann Zelkowski, was the architect of. Look her up in the Wikipedias and see what Winnie Wong was responsible for. And what was the premise behind Occupy? There's no centralized leader.
Mm-hmm.
There's no leaders, and therefore there's no accountability for anyone. Everyone could be the leader, or nobody could be the leader.
Exactly.
And this is a mantra that you will hear coming out of the mouth of Wesley Clark Jr. and of the mouths of these folks. Nobody's responsible for anything. Nobody is in leadership of anything. And the other thing that they want you to know is that nobody that engaged in a coup against our country, no one that is an anti-Semite and racist Trump supporter should be looked upon as the scourge that they are. No.
Mm-hmm.
You need to embrace them because they've been sucked into the Trump cult. And these folks that are normalizing the idea that Wesley Clark was mind controlled and that they were all part of a cult, the I Am cult, that somehow lets them off the hook for what they did, for what they did to the American people, and that they can have, this is like replacing the insanity defense in court, except they're using the cult defense.
That's right.
To try to like whitewash all of the damage that they have done and continue to do.
Exactly.
And of course position themselves now as being the experts on what and who. And least I remind you, Forgiato Blow is known for making rap exclusively for the alt-right, because no one that is beloved in the entertainment world wants to have their music played at any Trump rally or any right-wing event, and no worthwhile entertainer wants to have anything to do with the MAGA right.
Yeah.
And therefore they have come to rely upon sold-out figures like Forgiato Blow, who heretofore you had never heard of.
No.
He's like, not like Kanye or Eminem even.
Well, the king's looking for some musical acts, yeah.
The king. So here's a picture of the YouTube channel that shows how this Forgiato Blow was used to elevate people like Roger Stone and also Matt Gaetz, because Matt Gaetz had a little period of time there where he was not seen as persona non grata, being investigated as he was for a period of time for sex trafficking of minors.
Yeah.
Right? And that is one of the things that you're going to hear repeatedly, that we're trying to clean up the image, whitewash the image and the background of some of these people. And yes, they have actors, entertainers that are there for the assist. They were present at Standing Rock as well. Here's an image of Francis Fisher at Standing Rock. This is in the casino. You recognize the casino, don't you?
Oh, yes, I do.
And they're in the middle of the sandwich, if you will. There's Francis Fisher on the end. I'm not too sure who that other gentleman is on the other end, but you have the Arquette sisters in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
Patricia and Roseanne Arquette. Mm-hmm. I believe one of them brought some compostable toilets that were turned into living quarters for people. Because it was one of the only structures that wasn't burned down by all of the mercenaries in the end. Mm-hmm. And so people were actually living in the toilet, sleeping in the compostable toilet, as if it were a shelter. And and writing on the walls, these people donated a bunch of money and equipment, and they did so to get other folks to donate and support for people's, lawyers, for people's supplies, woods, generators. People donated money for trucks to help evacuate people. That all of that money, all of these things, for the most part, were pocketed. Mm-hmm. squandered, destroyed, or misappropriated in a giant cluster, a cluster beep, a cluster beep of theft and fraud. And it was really an amazing thing to watch happen. Millions and millions of dollars flowed in and then also flowed out and into the pockets of a lot of people. Lots of, money, moving money, money laundering, hiding money, whatever you want to call it, through GoFundMes and all sorts of other very questionable things. And of course, we see all of these cryptocurrency dudes, which I brought to you in our last show, that were all around this whole thing. But in addition to that, they raised money for people that got arrested and injured to the tune of millions of dollars for the Water Protective Legal Collective, for example. But they also raised money for surgeries and for treatment of people that got injured during standoffs. Now, I believe many of those standoffs, if not every single one, was planned.
Yeah, I believe so too.
I think they were staged, they were planned, and incidentally, some people did get injured, but they were there with that intent, right? One of those people that was injured was Vanessa Dundon, a.k.a. Susie Desba. And of course, Frances Fisher is one of the people that is tagged immediately upon her injury so that money can be raised for her. And we hear Wes talking about her in interviews that he does, where he thinks that after he left Standing Rock, he believed that the money should go to the people that got injured, like this woman, Vanessa Dundon, who he promoted and who Frances Fisher worked with for a while, not just at Standing Rock. She and all of the PR people and all of the actors and all of the entertainers that were working together on this psyop, on this PR stunt that was Standing Rock, they weren't just working together there. They went on to do other things. They went on to support people's campaigns. And in fact, many people that went to Standing Rock were on a campaign trail. They were politicking. They were beginning, many of them,
on the circuit,
Yeah, they some of them were born out of Standing Rock, like AOC.
Yep, exactly.
But you have a whole bunch of these people going out and doing all sorts of events together afterwards, like the People Summit, where you have Frances Fisher and Tulsi Gabbard and a bunch of the people that I showed you that were at Standing Rock around Jordan Sheridan and TYT and Wes Clark Jr. And this one you also see Rosario Dawson and Sean King and Naomi Klein and others. And then, of course, there is other events like protests that they went to. So you see Vanessa and Frances Fisher at this protest in Los Angeles, I believe this was at. I'm not sure, but you can see both Frances Fisher and Vanessa within the red circles on the screen. If you're listening to our show, I'm showing images of different protests that and projects that these women clearly were working on together. Many of the people that are tagged in these posts work in the entertainment industry or also were working on political campaigns as well. And this has to do with, they've got climate issues and women's issues, and they've got Vanessa Dundon's holding a banner for Free Red Fawn, because after they put Red Fawn Phallus, because what I believe happened to Red Fawn Phallus and many unsuspecting activists or just innocent bystanders that went to Standing Rock, and then ended up getting framed and put in jail and basically chewed up and spit out by this PR machine, like what happened to Kathleen Bennett and her mom and their entire family, was also done to Red Fawn Phallus.
Yeah.
And I believe they framed her. They had a FBI agent date her, and then they, that's how they were able to frame her.
Yeah.
And then we've seen a lot of operations, like with that Darby guy
Oh yeah.
in
Brandon.
Minneapolis,
Yep.
where they set people up, and for the most part, in today's America, a lot of the people that are being caught, a lot of the things that they tell you, because we're constantly being told there's a terroristic threat ever since 9/11, there's a terroristic threat. And we have to stave off the terrorists in their cells and in their networks. Most of the stuff that they have been able to find is FBI or CIA framing people.
That's right. It's
trapping.
Informants and entrapment. I always thought that was if you sent someone in and gave someone the weapons, that they're entrapping them. But people have went to jail because they have these informants that go in and they plot, and they get people involved in the plot, and then they try to pull off the plot, and then they go to jail and the informant's still free. I mean, it's just like, what?
Mm-hmm. And these CIA and FBI informants, who are clearly working with the PR machine from the PR firms connected to Trevor Fitzgibbons, Ann Zalkowski, Winnie Wong, Maggie Day, Seven McDonald, Desiree Kane, and others, including all of the people that they have represented. Because pay attention. I want you to keep an eye on all the different people that they have represented and that they work with, including organizations. I told you they've represented people like MoveOn.org and NARO. They also have represented places like Code Pink, I think it's called, and things like that.
Wow.
And I'm going to show you. So Frances Fisher is almost like an ambassador that is one of the people representing a lot of these things and working with all of these different actors, B and D list actors, in these campaigns, in these PR campaigns and psychological operations like the one that we had at Standing Rock. And then at the border with the caravans.
Oh, yeah.
And she was involved in that too.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a reposting of Sacred Stone Camp, sharing a tweet by Frances Fisher where she's talking about what's happening at the border with asylum seekers, and saying that people are being tear gassed, and women and children and men, and she's so disgusted with it.
Yep. This is America.
And of course, I showed you that a lot of the people that were working with this group of PR people at Standing Rock were dangerous felons, they had criminal backgrounds, a lot of them in sexual assault and pedophilia, which is very disturbing. But others in a variety of things, including trafficking people. When they went down to form a camp at the border, at the butterfly sanctuary, with the head of the Carrizo Come Crudo tribe, who was also at Standing Rock, Vanessa Dundon and a whole group of sex workers and human traffickers were at this camp. And I did a whole series of video shows.
That's right, yeah.
Showing you from their own words that they had been convicted human traffickers and that they knew the best routes to get people over the border, advertising their skill sets of what they did, having drones in the area so they could keep the border patrol monitored, and all of the other shady things that they were doing. And of course, here is a banner from Vanessa Dundon, who goes also by the name of Susie Desba on Facebook, because they all use different fake names. But you see Frances Fisher is tagged.
Yep.
There's Juan B. Mancias and his daughter, the supposed heads of that border camp and the Carrizo Come Crudo tribe leaders. And then Vanessa Dundon, her other name, is also tagged in the post. And you see that she is posting the banner for the Butterflies with No Borders organization through which she was raising money at the border.
That's right.
But that's not all she did. She was also throughout she went across the border supposedly to look for missing and murdered indigenous women. This is a woman who was hanging out with people that were committing rapes, that were assaulting women, that were assaulting children, that were committing fraud, that were taking people's money, that were misappropriating people's money. And yet they thought it was a good idea to go over the border and put these very people right next to vulnerable people seeking asylum.
Yeah.
And they took Wiaka Eagleman, who also goes by the name of Wambly Wicasa. They changed their names a lot. I hope they change their underwear just as often. Here's a picture of them all in Mexico. There's Wambly Wicasa and Dwayne Redwater, and there's, you could see in the background, there's tents, or they're in
a camp
in Mexico. And it was very disturbing to me to see these people hanging out with very vulnerable people. I also noticed that throughout the pandemic, Vanessa was once again collecting money, because they were collecting money the whole time here, and they were going out and doing actions, right? She was involved in an action where she had her eye damaged, and people were raising money for her. Wes said in an interview that they were raising money for her to go out of the country and have surgery on her eye.
Wow.
None of that actually ever happened.
Yeah.
She actually didn't have enough damage to her eye to lose vision or to require surgery. She regained her vision in her eye, and her eye did not require that exorbitant amount of money that was raised on her behalf. But also, she went on to do other things. I don't know if she was arrested that day when she got injured so badly, but in this next post, you'll see that she did set herself up at the border, which she went down to Mexico to get arrested, along with all of the clergy that were there to get arrested. I mean, that's what it says in the post right there.
That's
she
right,
says,
it does.
"Today I'm at the border awaiting the clergy coming to get arrested." That's what they were there for. It was all for show. And they were in Tijuana. And the people that watch my show know that I didn't just sit behind my desk, that you and I did not just sit here behind our desk watching live streams of what was happening in 2016 at Standing Rock, or afterward. We were hands-on, boots on the ground. We traveled to Tijuana.
Yep.
Also, I continued to report on and follow all of these mercenary activists and all of their fraudulent campaigns everywhere they went, whether it was Houston when they had the flooding, or Florida when they had the hurricanes, or Puerto Rico after the hurricanes there, or California when they had the fires, and all of the money they were raising to put in their pockets, and all the people they were defrauding, or the people that they were raping, or the drugs that they were doing, or, I was following it and reporting on it.
That's
and
right.
I've got years and years of evidence and shows and interviews and receipts. Because cuando yo digo que la burra es pinta es porque traigo los pelos en la mano. I don't just talk out of my mouth hole to make sounds. I bring you evidence.
Exactly.
If you don't have photos or video or audio, it doesn't count. It didn't happen. I have those. And it made the people that I was exposing along the way so angry that one of the drone pilots working with these folks, Dean Dedman, dedicated the burning of the buildings at the camps, at the closing of the camps, to our station and to me, and told me that I screwed up, except he didn't use the word screw, because I had told what was going to happen too soon. I let the cat out of the bag.
That's right.
And there was a lot of anger and resentment and backlash for me exposing the frauds. Remember when we exposed that one of the other people that was out there with Vanessa Dundon, who also got his eye shot out.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
That was hanging out with James Martinez. I can't remember his name. Marcus Mitchell.
Yep.
Who claimed to have been shot.
Yep.
And was asking for donations and had all of these phonies from Standing Rock making live videos and crying, please, we need money.
Mm-hmm.
And then I showed you that they literally took a picture from a Japanese medical journal to pretend that was their x-ray and say that they had been shot when they had not been shot at all. And they collected thousands of dollars. And when I proved and showed everyone that it was all a fraud, people that platformed these frauds and cried and begged for money become angry at the fraudulent behavior of these individual water protectors. Oh, no. They got mad at me.
Yeah.
They were like, that horrible woman. She is like bringing down these people. Who knows why they lied to get money, but we should have compassion for them.
Yeah.
They've been through so much. Yeah, they've been through so much defrauding and lying. They don't know how to do anything else. And I don't feel sorry for them. I'm sorry. I do not. And they were very angry because we were exposing what they were doing in real time, even though the media wouldn't listen to us, because I reached out to the New York Times. I reached out to NBC. I reached out to every leader and organizer and asked for their media contacts, and we tried to reach out to every possible ally that we had to expose what was being done. And these people in Hollywood and the PR machine that they have around them, they have media people that they work with. They have the network all sewn up to their advantage. They have teams of lawyers and legal advisors also, and politicians in their pocket also. I mean, there was no way that a small radio station like ours was going to be able to overcome the barriers that had been set up through this PR machine. And so they took every opportunity to try to discredit our work, to try to slander and defame us, and to try to deflect and deflect and deflect. Such as this post from Vanessa Dundon around that time, where she is saying, receipts, Cindy Lamau. Too bad, not factual Cindy. 88.1 Fargo Moorhead, fake news. And then she called on people to do a meme challenge to basically use mimetic warfare against us. Remember when you asked me what mimetic warfare was when Samira Khan had it on her resume?
Yeah.
I made a mistake and told you that it had to do with Mohammedan. I mixed up Mohammedan and mimetic.
Okay.
And they're different.
I see.
Mimetic has to do with memes.
Okay.
And Mohammedan has to do with the Islamic faith. So I was wrong.
I see.
But making the correction today, they're calling for a mimetic war because it's part of what they do. And they have trolls, and they have their bots and their sock puppet accounts attack our station and try to make it appear as if we have fallen out of favor with everyone.
That's right.
And you're mentioned here, Duke, in the hashtags.
Really?
Duke and Cindy, couple memes.
Okay. Yeah.
So Cindy most outrageous lie memes. Stay tuned. Love Cindy memes. Cindy is last most inaccurate around. Open category memes. I can't say that word because it's a swear word. Mexican crossing the lines. And then she says that I am an assimilated, whitewashed Anglo-Spaniard and do not have indigenous blood.
Oh, really?
Como quisiera. I think she really wishes hard that I were not a Mexican, that I were not indigenous, but I am, honey. I am. Unfortunately for you, soy más mexicana que el chile. And you know what else? You had no problem with fake Indians in your midst, like Desiree King. You don't have a problem with her. You uphold her. You uplift her and her fakeness. And a lot of these other white people pretend Indianing. You have no problem with that. But you want to discredit this indigenous woman, proudly Mexican woman, have always, and that's the name of my show.
Yeah.
I've never hidden that fact. And in fact, I started this radio station with my husband because I want media to be owned and run by indigenous women. And for the longest time, my brother and myself in this Fargo-Moorhead metro area, and as far as the eye could see in my surrounding areas, I was the only person working in media at that level, like the editor of a newspaper, the owner of a radio station. You don't see that in America, and especially not in the Midwest. But here, the rest of this post tells you, you can see more of the seething hatred that they have. And I want you to just read through some of the things that she says and the slander and the lies that she accuses us of, which include saying that we are the ones that helped kill Mary Trujillo, when it was them and all of these people working with Wes Clark that actually killed this indigenous woman and contributed to her daughter spending time in jail. But they wanted for her to spend the rest of her life in that jail. They destroy lives, and then they want to deflect and blame it on someone else. How very Trumpian of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Read what they say, honey.
Yeah, like, let's see, claims all these jobs, but still didn't help Kathleen or her mom. Later found out Kathleen was a POS when the whole family shunned them, returning her condition. Shelved her elderly mom was sick. No elder deserves that, even if she not there. Is not all there. Cindy defended a elder abuser. Kathleen killed her mother by what she put her through. These are all hashtags. These sentence hashtags. Cindy helped re-expose her to her abuser. Wishy-wash day hurt at this time. If I saw what they did, Grandma would have been loved, not shamed, like Kathleen did and Cindy, which killed her grandma. Everyone saw how terrified she was. Bleep you, Cindy. Call people for interviews. They should. Errol Medicine, Dwayne, myself, and so many may have told you to call us back when we want to set your ass straight. Right. Lawyers, look. Hundreds of us you haven't lied about. We have proof, a.k.a. receipts. Now we're uniting like you thought we were just 'cause you see peeps together on Facebook. You know,
this woman, she's saying that, really just a reminder, Duke, we showed this in our show before. We've already gone, this is covered ground. But I wanted to show you because as I have been putting out my response to the American Psyop podcast, there's been some pushback.
Yeah.
There's some angry, rabid people just like there were in the beginning. And they do the same type of thing.
Yeah.
They deflect. They project. They say, I was the one that did these things. And she even says there, she wishes she hadn't been injured at the time because had she been there, you know what she would have done? She would have actually given Mary Trujillo love.
Oh, yeah.
Never mind the fact that we personally organized numbers of people to go visit her at the hospital.
Yeah.
That we helped get her back to her home. And that we personally drove her daughter home after we took her in.
Right. All the way to Vegas.
Cared for her and her animals.
Yeah. And all the
reunited the family.
Yeah, and all the Kathleen Bennett shows. Again, if you go to kpppfm.com and go to updates on Standing Rock, there's a whole section on all the shows that deal with Kathleen Bennett. I mean, we did like months and months and months and months and months and months and months of shows.
Years, honey.
Because
We did
Kathleen
years.
Bennett was in jail for 6 months, and we spent those 6 months trying to get out of jail. Got her out of jail. Got her lawyer. Fundraised, got her lawyer. The charges were dropped. Reunited her with her mother. Mother taken back home. Her with her mother back home. And we thwarted the Standing Rock fakers who wanted to use that as a PR tool to make part of their strategy. And so saying that she would have done, she would have, could have, would have, we're part of those people that were trying to do a plan that we got in the way of because we were authentic and we really did something for someone who really needed help.
She wasn't going to do anything for them. You know what Vanessa Dundon was doing for the elderly? Do you know what Vanessa Dundon was doing for people as she was collecting money to supposedly take supplies out to the Navajo Nation and the Hopi Nation and give people what they needed during the pandemic? She was dealing meth. Yeah, that's what she was doing. Look, here's her charges. Meth dealer on Hopi lands pleads guilty. And if you scroll down, and this is just
February of this
year. So this is what Vanessa Dundon is really about. This is what a lot of the folks that were at Standing Rock were doing, meth. Yeah. And this is what they were doing after. This is a woman that was supported by Francis Fisher to go and be with vulnerable people in Mexico. This is a woman that, according to this last week, Vanessa Renee Dundon, a.k.a. Susie, a.k.a. Susie Q, age 38 of Indian Wells, Arizona, has pleaded guilty to possession with intent to distribute methamphetamine. Sentencing is scheduled for April 18, 2023, before United States District Judge Diane Humatewa. Dundon was stopped in her vehicle on the Hopi Reservation not once, but not twice, but 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
In April of 2021, in March of 2022, and then again in April of 2022. And on each occasion, she had controlled substances in her vehicle.
Wow.
At the change of plea hearing, Vanessa Dundon admitted that on April 17, 2022, she possessed 58.4 grams of pure methamphetamine and that she intended to deliver it to other individuals in exchange for payment.
Wow.
A conviction for possession with intent to distribute methamphetamine carries a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison and a fine of up to $1 million.
Or both.
Or both. The Phoenix Field Office of the Federal Bureau of Investigations and the Hopi Law Enforcement Services conducted the investigations in this case. Assistant United States attorneys in the Violent Crime Sections, District of Arizona, Phoenix, are handling the prosecution. And do you know what?
What?
I think that, but for the grace of God, she don't have more charges.
Yeah.
Because she was, if you think this is her first rodeo?
Nope.
Dean Dedman, the one that dedicated the burning of the buildings at the camps, also got arrested for possession of meth. A lot of these people had meth and other drugs at the camp. And in fact, in one of the interviews in which I did, one of the interviews that was done with Wes, I don't know if it was me specifically, but he talks about the fact that he saw people on meth at the camp.
Well, yeah, it wasn't just.
It was prevalent.
Yeah, it was this big party zone, and a bunch of people came there that were running from the law. They were just getting out of prison and jail, and it was like this safe haven for people to have their own society, supposedly, and just to, under the guise that there's an actual social justice movement going on. I do have to stop right now and tell you, this is a station break. If if you're listening on the radio. You're listening to KPPP LP 88.1 Fargo Moorhead, adding local color to your airwaves.
What were you saying about the camp?
Well, just so many people, especially, we went there in August of 2016, met some wonderful people. So went there because there was this quest for this change and this oppression of the government and tribal rights and indigenous people's rights. And we got to know a lot of people, but then as we got to know more people, we started seeing a whole different element in this, and also the way they did their actions. So people who were kind of like my heroes, as people I appreciated, would get involved, and they were part of the problem. They were part of this just dirty underbelly of corruption under the guise of social justice. Then they started bringing in actors and famous people from all over the world.
And they were all working together.
And I'm like, oh, no, not him. I always thought Dr. Cornell. Oh,
Not
no,
Dr. Cornell.
not Dr. Cornell.
Oh, no.
The Hulk. Oh, I
the
liked him so
Hulk.
much. Frances Fisher, I didn't really like her ever. Jane Fonda. Oh.
Oh, Jane Fonda.
Yeah.
And then when they went around doing the bank exit stuff,
Oh, yeah.
and Lily Tomlin was there. I
Oh,
was like,
yeah.
no,
No,
not
not
Lily Tomlin. Yeah, they're all connected. They're all connected.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, American Psyop, the podcast, I don't know if it's the very first episode called Genesis or if it's subsequent to that episode. But right at the very beginning of this lengthy, crazy rant, he talks about the fact that he started off as a PA in Los Angeles for Jersey Films,
Okay.
which is owned by Danny DeVito. And later on, the people that work with Danny DeVito, and there's like a little group of people, of actors, are the very same actors that we saw at Standing Rock and at political events after with Frances Fisher and others, and then going forward. So the same little group of people we kept seeing over and over again. Danny Glover.
Yeah, that's right.
That's Sam, whatever his name was. You know which ones I'm talking about.
Yep.
Again, if you want to go, you don't need to recreate the wheel. I've already done the research for you. I've already collected the information. I've already put all of that together. And by the way, since we've been doing these shows, we hooked up with a professor at George Mason University, La Profesora Guadalupe Correa Cabrera, who's an expert in human trafficking and cartel organized crime. And we published a scientific paper that I authored with her and other professors, not once, but twice. We were just recently published again, just a month or maybe 2 months ago.
A couple months ago.
In the Atlantic Journal of Communications.
Yep.
And we showed the network of mercenaries and how they mercenary. How they mercenary.
How they were criming.
How they're going around, criming, but what their roles are.
Yeah, from one to the next. From Standing Rock to the border and beyond. So your criming's been documented in scientific journals, and it's been published, and it's out in the academic world, and we're going to take some of that and digest it for you, because most of you aren't probably looking at it, but you've been published. You're notated and notarized.
And one of the people that's in the publishings, it's Desiree Kane.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's one of the many names connected to all of this stuff. But I wanted to get back to the people at the camp and who they were connected to. Vanessa Dundon, the meth dealer, the now admitted meth dealer, who will probably be going to jail for a long time, so we won't see her on the circuit for a while. She's not going to be able to collect any more money for the missing and murdered Indigenous women that she never found.
Yeah.
She's going to be busy going to jail. But meanwhile, I'm sure that others in the PR world of Frances Fisher and Winnie Wong will continue. Here they are back in the day, hanging out. and they have those stupid
Filters,
Snapchat filters on their faces. But there's Frances Fisher. Winnie Wong is in the middle. And then all the way to the right is Nomiki Konst. You remember Nomiki, don't you? Do you remember where you saw her?
Puerto Rico?
Puerto Rico. And that's where she was interviewing Brock Pierce.
Oh, okay.
The guy that's been sued for sexual misconduct. The guy I showed you is the blockchain dude that was doing the Miss World pageants with Samira Khan.
Yep, exactly.
The child actor that was in The Mighty Ducks that
guy,
was mysteriously found a dead body in Puerto Rico not too long after this interview of another cryptocurrency guy from Russia.
Wow.
Yeah, that's where Nomiki connects with all of this story. And Winnie Wong and, of course, Frances Fisher. But I want to remind you that this PR group under the Bernie Sanders banner with Winnie Wong, it didn't just restrict Winnie to Standing Rock, although it started there, and they were working together. Besides the picture post that I showed you originally of the Coates and Seven McDonald, and they were planning on getting together with Wes's crew. They were working together at the camp as well. Here is a picture taken by Winnie Wong of Desiree Kane, where they're having dinner at the casino, and you see that Desiree Kane is holding up a package of honey because she wasn't feeling well, and Winnie Wong brought her a care package from Anoa Changa, who is a media person or YouTuber, that one of the many platforms that they used to promote their messaging that they had in this PR machine. And of course, they're talking about how they're going to go to the People's Summit together because they do.
That was the next thing.
And this is what they're doing. And here's another one of them traveling together, working on campaign stuff. There's Desiree in the passenger seat and Winnie Wong with another stupid Snapchat filter on her face.
Yeah.
And of course, this is near Chicago, Illinois in 2016, in July of 2016.
There we go.
Okay. And then, of course, and by the way, in July of 2016, the camp was it was all the rage. This is when it was like everything was happening at the camps in Standing Rock. And she claimed to have been there from the beginning of Standing Rock
that's right,
until
the whole
end.
time. Yeah.
I just showed you she wasn't.
No.
She was traveling around with Winnie Wong and doing all sorts of things. She wasn't always at the camp. In fact, most of these people, including Wes Clark, were mostly at the casino.
Yeah.
Drinking, doing drugs. I don't know what else. I know there was a lot of that partying going on at the casino. And I know that these people were not roughing it out in the cold.
Yeah.
I know that. But Winnie Wong, she has worked on numerous campaigns with numerous leaders of movements, as well as actors and actresses. And I guess they're all into the activism world.
Yeah.
So here you see her working with Susan Sarandon. And in the background of this picture, you've got Linda Sarsour, who was leading the Women's March, or who hijacked the Women's March. I'm not sure. We've covered that as well. And in this next one, of course, you have Winnie Wong working with Cassandra Fairbanks. Here they are together at a hotel where they're both promoting Bernie Sanders.
I'm sure.
And now we know that the whole Bernie Sanders thing of supporting Bernie Sanders was a front. That all of these people, including Tulsi Gabbard, Evan Duke, and all those people working alongside Wes Clark, Desiree Kane, and Winnie, they were always going to try to, and did get, Trump elected. That was the purpose of what they were doing.
Yep.
They were just catfishing everyone and letting them think that they were Bernie supporters. Here's a post that Winnie Wong posted a long time ago.
Wow.
Actually, this is in 2018. So this is long after the camps are closed.
Yep.
And we're now into the period of time when it's getting close to the caravans, or right around the time that the caravans are moving and coming into Mexico, and that Winnie Wong and Ann Zalkowski of Trevor Fitzgibbons's whole campaign are working on bringing the caravans and bringing undocumented people into the country while they pretend to hate undocumented people. But they're actually helping bring in undocumented people. And they've got a cartoon by some artist of Linda Sarsour in a Klan hat mask. And then in the comment sections, you see Ann Zalkowski of Trevor Fitzgibbon's PR firm commenting. So, and tagging Sarsour's relatives.
Okay.
So you see that they never stopped working together.
Yeah.
From the time that they were working to cover up Jordan Sheridan's rape together to working on bringing in undocumented immigrants from Mexico together. And if you're not connecting the dots, for those of you who are listening right now, to how you are hearing of all of these stories of hundreds of undocumented immigrant children working graveyard shifts at meatpacking plants and working in all of these companies and factories. They're working in the dairy industry for Ben and Jerry's. Ben and Jerry's.
Oh, Ben and Jerry's.
Ben and Jerry's. And people like Ben and Jerry's have the audacity to say that they actually, before they started using undocumented and unaccompanied minor Central American slaves, I mean children, that they consulted to make sure that their work environment was tippy-top. So, I mean, if you're going to use slaves, you got to go with the best.
That's right. Ice cream on brakes.
So these people, and I'm by these people, I mean Republicans, I mean libertarians, I mean the Green Party, I mean the Socialist Democrats, I mean the Democrats. All of you in America, you have always lied about and have never had one iota of intent of fixing the immigration problem, because it ain't no problem for you. In order for you to be able to exploit, expel at your whim, and take advantage of, including trafficking of the labor of these undocumented, unaccompanied minors, including the dismemberment, the decapitation of, the abuse of, the killing of, the trafficking of, sex trafficking of a lot of these people that I told you would become victims in a system that is not prepared to either grant them asylum or give them a pathway to citizenship, that brings them in by the hundreds of thousands and then just leaves them to the mercy of the people of the Water Protective and Caravan Support Border Network system. Of these Bernie come Trump lover followers that are supposed to be taking these asylum seekers in. That is what was set up through this whole caravan nonsense.
Yeah.
To make it appear that we are so angry and the Democrats are fighting the Republicans about what's happening at the border. Meanwhile, they're all working together in coordination to bring thousands and thousands of undocumented people into this country to do the work that none of the American people are willing to do. And now, with the pandemic and you have the labor shortages, they're going to be exploiting those people even more.
Exactly.
Don't lose sight of what I told you, because it's happening in real time. I told you this would happen to those asylum seekers and those undocumented people. And I told you that I hated the people that were doing this. Lolly B, Jake Lee, Winnie Wong, and their PR campaign and all of this nonsense while they were sitting there telling you they're just trying to help these people come into the country. When I told you they were bringing them in to put them into detention centers and to be spit out into the United States to be taken advantage of and exploited because we don't have any laws that protect those people in this country. And that is a very purposeful thing that we have always done. I am 50 years old, and in my entire lifetime, no Democrat, no Republican, no independent, no libertarian, no nada has tried to reform and or fix the broken immigration system because it does not behoove them to do so. And Winnie Wong and the people that work in the PR machine, they have always had an agenda. They've always been working toward the same agenda and for the same people. Remember that I told you that Trevor Fitzgibbon and Anzalkowski, who works with Winnie Wong, have always represented people like Chelsea Manning. Here you see Winnie Wong working publicly on that campaign and posting about you need to free Chelsea. And you can see that they're telling people how to engage with the hashtags and how to promote their campaign for Chelsea Manning, right? And in this next post, is there any other comments underneath that we need to look at?
Nope.
No. Okay. And in this next post, you see that they're working with Chelsea Manning, right?
Yeah.
Cassandra Fairbanks and Chelsea Manning attended this men's rights right-wing bash that includes a lot of neo-Nazis and anti-Semitic people at this event. And the headline says, "Scenes from a drunken huddle of angry white men." A men's rights bash in New York City had far-right fixtures whining about lower classes, women, and brown people. For some reason, Chelsea Manning was there.
Yeah.
I
remember that.
She had just gotten, she was just really free and new on the scene and finally out in her new name and gender identity. And one of the first things that she did with the PR team that's always represented her over there at the Trevor Fitzgibbons and the Winnie Wong and all of that was that they put her together with Cassandra Fairbanks. You just saw one of the people working with Winnie Wong was Cassandra Fairbanks. And Cassandra, who has always worked both sides of the aisle, she's been the Bernie bro, but I did a whole show on her showing you that she's a sex worker and showing you how she was involved, even going back to the Anthony Weiner thing, and how she was involved with Guccifer, and how she was involved with Roger Stone.
That's right.
And so she was involved in all aspects of the WikiLeaks, the Assange, I called it an Assange-a-thon, but it was called Unity for J, Unity for Julian Assange, and how these folks have always been steadily working on these campaigns together with Cassandra Fairbanks working at Sputnik and Bigley, that of course has Russian ties. Here's a picture of them all hanging out at an escape room. Because, by the way, Chelsea Manning said when people found out that she went to an alt-right bash, they were furious at her and thought, what is going on with this woman? Why is she hanging out with fascists? And so she, because her persona is like Edward Snowden, she was like exposing secrets and helping the American people learn about what its government is doing to them. So she came up with the story that she was there to gather information about the fascists.
Doing recon.
But she was lying, because in this post you see that Yashar Ali posted the picture of their escape room escapades, which includes Chelsea Manning down in front, Cassandra Fairbank. In the back there, you've got Lucian Whittrich, which is a far-right figure. You've got Jack Posobiec, another very far-right figure. And the post says, and Mike Cernovich, and it says, Chelsea Manning said she was crashing Cernovich's party last night. But here's a picture taken in Washington, D.C. before Christmas, where she certainly does not appear to be crashing anything. And she's not hanging out with these people to gather info, intel. She's having a good time with fascists, and that's just what they're trying to normalize. You don't have to be angry at the fascists. You can join them. Now let me show you what one of the people that goes all the way back to Standing Rock, that was one of the Desiree Kane says they were doing the security for Tulsi Gabbard. So started the whole campaign on Occupy inauguration, the event posted by Evan Duke. And here is all of the things that they were going to be working on. Now, I've shown this to all of you before. This is an email that basically talked about what they were going to be doing for Occupy inauguration. But if you scroll down to the bottom, I want you to notice that they have a specific list of people that they are advocating for and whom they are working with. This coincides with and connects with many of the clients of the Trevor Fitzgibbon, Ann Zalkowski, Winnie Wong, Seven McDonald, blah, 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 PR machine that includes all these actors and actresses. So if you could just blow that up so you can see the list, you've got it there in the middle now.
Okay.
And
it's a hard thing to work with.
It is a little difficult to work with. But
that's a little bit better.
I want people to see the original documents, because I get attacked a lot for not being a credible source of information when I'm just using the information that people put out themselves.
Email, and you can see.
You can see there they have the people that they're endorsing and working with: Occupy Wall Street, Code Pink, Socialist Alternative, Progressive Independent Party, United Progressive Coalition, Move to Amend, Revolt Against Plutocracy, Veterans Party of America, Demand Universal Health Care, and Equality Coalition, Digital Smoke Signals, Real Progressives, National Bernie's Delegates Speaking Panel, Indigenous Environmental Network, Veterans for Peace, Roots Action, Socialist City Councilwoman, Kashama, I can't say that name, Kashama Sowert, Native American activist Winona LaDuke, law professor and former Florida congressional candidate Tim Canova, Move to Amend national spokesperson and Jill Stein, and Baraka Ojama, 2017 campaign manager David Cobb, Lakota elder and activist Phyllis Young. And if you look down even further, so they named a lot of the people that connect, and you see right there, right where your hand is, it says amongst the things that they're asking for: scrap TPP, pass a federal $15 minimum wage, free college education, all of these things. At the bottom there, it says, we call for the release of all political prisoners. List to be built: Manning, Snowden, Peltier. What was one of the things that Wes Clark Jr. said he did after he did his little ceremony at Standing Rock? He wrote a letter to Obama asking for the release of Peltier. Do you see how they're all working on the same campaigns together for the PR firm? There's Evan Duke's signature, so you see he's the one that authored this back in the day. He is one of their campaign managers for Occupy inauguration. That's working with these folks. So next slide, I want to show you what else they were working on. Here's the voting stuff. Oh, there's no Miki Konst again. No, Miki's running for office. Oh, wow. Yeah, a lot of the people that went to Standing Rock ended up going off and running for office, or they were already running for office when they went to Standing Rock. It just helped their campaign. It's like it's like a Lollapalooza for politicians, you know, or a Burning Man for, politicians, where they get to promote that stuff. And so after this slide, I've got another one in which they're promoting Nako Bear. And this is one of a multitude of posts by Frances Fisher, because she is into Nako Bear. In this post, you just have a poster. In other ones, she is at the events where she is promoting Nako Bear. And she talks about him constantly in great detail. In this one, she just says, Nako Bear is playing with Peter Yarrow this Sunday. I've posted Nako's beautiful music here many times. Yes, I know, Francis, you have promoted a sexual assaulter and pedophile many times on your platform.
Exactly.
And you hang out with them.
Yep.
And of course, they don't care that they brought these people as entertainers to Standing Rock and beyond Standing Rock. And we have a lot of evidence of the fact that Nako Bear was assaulting people. Nako was facing assault charges. And one of the venues that held a lot of these festivals, called Beloved, put out a statement addressing the fact that Nako Bear was, and still at the time of the posting, Nako was at the time and currently still is facing felony sexual assault charges that he inflicted on multiple loved ones within the Beloved community. But that's not all. He was also intimidating people. And it was him and his band. It wasn't just him. The band put out a wishy-washy statement. Nako put out a wishy-washy statement. I've done numerous shows showing you that Nako was not just assaulting and pedophiling. He was also appropriating, because he too is of mixed background that's pretend Indianing, but is really a confused identity where he doesn't even know exactly what he is. There are currently allegations of underage fondling, sexual grooming, and sexual abuse and intimidation. The courageous women that spoke up and brought to light these allegations have been threatened, harassed, and have been treated by Nako fans in ways that are unacceptable. Another name that you saw on the list there promoted by Evan Duke is Winona LaDuke. Winona LaDuke. I did several shows about how they were being investigated because Winona LaDuke was hiding a fake shaman and pedophile within her organization, and that she attacked people within her organization that brought it to her attention that he was sexually assaulting children. And there was a whole ugly public fight between Desiree Kane and Winona LaDuke. And on social media, they were, I don't like you no more. And I don't believe any of that, because these people whitewash the images of sexual assaulters. I don't believe that they care that these people are actually indigenous and representing indigenous people and indigenous issues. I don't think that these people in the PR care whether or not the people they're bringing into these very vulnerable communities to begin with have criminal backgrounds, are dealing drugs, are grooming children, are assaulting women, are defrauding elderly people. I don't think they care. Because if they cared, they would have been a little bit more careful to vet who they were bringing in the first place. It seems like almost everyone that they are working with and that they brought into leadership positions, fundraising platforms, were shady as hell. And in this next post, do you have the next scene here? We see what this is all culminating to. And that is the coup. Because a lot of the folks that were involved at Standing Rock, and I'm going to share this with you next time, that were involved in militias, involved in politics. We told you there were Bundys at Standing Rock. We told you there were burners at Standing Rock. We told you there were 3%ers at Standing Rock. We told you there was men rights advocates at Standing Rock. We told you that we saw a lot of the folks that were Bernie Sanders and progressive supporters, supposedly, who ended up being clearly Trump supporters and working closely with Trevor Fitzgibbons and all of the people who supported Trump, were always working together. They just were. They were. And now I see that the people that produced this Psyop podcast, the people that I told you that did not vet, did not call us, but other people. We reached out to the witnesses in the case, Josh and Ren. They weren't contacted either. Many of the people in the comments of the podcast said they weren't contacted either. I want you to know that not only was I not contacted, not only were we slandered and lied about in the course of this, but the folks that were associated with this podcast, that were working, either giving interviews to the podcast like Desiree Kane, or the people that they were working with on the outside like Dave Troy. These are people who I personally reached out to. I reached out to Dave Troy, and I'm going to share these things with you in the future so you can look at them yourself, to let them know that things that they were talking about connected to Standing Rock, Wes Clark, and a lot of other folks out there. And I wanted you to see that. So I want you to see how these folks have been in the past working on different projects together, and there is a goal and a message that comes through the American Psyop podcast and what they are trying to sell the American public. One of those things, I think, is to normalize the cults and to normalize the Trump supporters and the anti-Semitism and the hatred, and to embrace it, not to reject it, but to embrace it, as they were telling us that you need to accept those people.
Yeah.
Here's a collab between Dave Troy. You have the wrong slide there.
Sorry.
We're talking about the collab between Dave Troy and he and a number of people worked on this essay on January 6th of 2022, the 1-year anniversary of the coup, or the 2nd year anniversary of the coup.
Yeah.
And it was titled January 6th was part of something larger that we must confront now. You know, for all the urgency of that headline, when I reached out to Dave Troy, he didn't want to confront the truth of what I was telling him about Wes Clark and the people that apparently he is propping up and working with and writing this essay to give credibility to the likes of Wesley Clark Jr. and Jack Bryan and Stephen Hassan. Here you see, and the credits at the end of this piece, they end it with our belief, because they all worked on this together, you see.
I see.
Is that we have badly misunderstood the scope and nature of our predicament, and we must reassess it with fresh eyes, fully informed by history. Fully informed means you actually listen to other researchers and journalists who have valid information about the story, which you did not, Dave Troy, which you did not, Jack Bryant. And by the way, Dave lists that he worked with Monique Camara, a welfare expert and instructor at the University of Siena, Italy, in addition to Wes Clark Jr., U.S. Army veteran and climate activist, Jack Bryant, the American Psyop producer, and it says here, filmmaker for Active Measures, and Stephen Hassan, Ph.D. and cult expert and author. And I am going to talk much more in depth about both Mr. Dave Troy and Mr. Hassan in my upcoming shows here on A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
Join us next time where I'm going to bring you part 5 of the American Psyop BS. Don't miss it. Good night. God bless.
Good night.